everyone, and welcome back. Ever find yourself daydreaming about like just gliding through a conversation in, I don't know, Italian maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Ordering a perfect espresso in Rome. It's so easy to put language learning in the too hard basket.
Yeah.
But what if we told you it could be, well, easier than you think? Today we're diving into learning a new language is easy, actually. Steps to fluency without stress.
Okay.
Uncover those secrets to unlocking your inner polyglot.
I like that.
Let's do this.
You know, what I find interesting is how many people get completely psyched out before they even begin.
Oh, totally.
This source really nails it. We
Yeah.
get so caught up in this idea that we need to sound like a UN interpreter.
Oh my gosh.
Right from day one.
Like those become fluent in 30 days.
Exactly.
Please. This source reminds us that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
And we need to ditch those unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Instead of aiming for perfection right away, think of it like compound interest, but for your brain.
Okay.
Every little bit of practice, no matter how small,
Right.
it adds up over time.
Exactly. And think about it, even native speakers don't know every single word in their language.
That's true.
It's about making those gradual improvements.
Yeah.
You know, celebrating those little aha moments and focusing on consistency over cramming.
Totally. Okay, so let's unpack the source's step-by-step guide a little bit here.
Okay.
First up, choosing your linguistic battleground. Love that.
Yeah.
They highlight the importance of setting yourself up for success
Right.
with a strategic first language.
This is crucial.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just picking what's considered, easy or hard.
Right.
For English speakers, yeah, Romance languages like Spanish or Italian might have a bit of an edge.
Okay.
Due to those shared roots, it leads to all those, cognate discoveries.
Yes, cognates, those familiar looking words that give you a head start.
Exactly.
But so does that mean that other languages are just totally off limits?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about finding what truly resonates with you as a learner.
Right.
Maybe you've got a personal connection to Japanese culture.
Right.
Or you've always dreamed of reading, I don't know, Pablo Neruda in the original Spanish. The source emphasizes that any language is totally attainable
Okay.
with dedication.
Right.
But that initial spark of passion can make a huge difference.
It's like choosing a travel destination.
Okay.
Sure, some places have easier to navigate transportation systems.
Right.
But ultimately, you're going to be way more motivated to explore a place that you're genuinely drawn to.
Exactly. And think about the resources that are available. A vibrant online community,
Yeah.
readily available learning materials, even the ability to connect with native speakers online.
It's amazing.
These factors can play a huge role in your success and enjoyment.
Totally.
For sure.
So once you've got that fire lit,
Yeah.
the source dives into a step that trips up so many learners.
Okay.
Mastering the basics.
Oh, yeah.
The basics.
It's so tempting to want to just jump ahead to the more,
Right to the good stuff.
the sexy stuff.
Yeah.
But they make a really strong case for why skipping this step.
It's like building a house on sand.
It's a recipe for disaster. Think about those basic phrases: greetings, simple questions, essential vocabulary.
Yes.
Those are your linguistic foundation. You just can't build fluency without them.
Right.
What's so fascinating is that these often have immediate real-world application.
Oh, for sure. Like that feeling of finally being able to order a coffee in Italian.
Yes.
Without resorting to just frantic hand gestures.
Exactly.
Or navigating public transportation in a foreign city.
Right.
Using your newly acquired language skills.
Right.
Those small victories can be incredibly empowering.
Absolutely.
And they fuel your motivation to keep going.
Absolutely. And this all ties into the beauty of consistent bite-sized learning.
Yes.
You don't need to be spending hours hunched over a textbook.
Right.
Even just a few minutes a day, practicing those basic phrases,
Yeah.
it can make a world of difference.
Wow, yeah.
Think of it like building a muscle. Consistency trumps intensity every time.
Totally. Speaking of integrating language learning into your everyday life,
Okay.
let's talk about listening practice.
Yeah.
Something this source calls the secret weapon to fluency.
Right.
They argue that it's absolutely crucial for training your ear
Yes.
and internalizing those subtle nuances of pronunciation that textbooks often just totally miss.
And it makes perfect sense when you think about how we all learned our first language.
You're right.
Through constant exposure and immersion.
Immersion, yeah.
Listening just replicates that process, allowing your brain to naturally absorb the rhythms and the patterns of the language.
It's like our brains become these sponges, just soaking up the sounds almost effortlessly.
Yeah.
And the best part is we live in a time where these resources are literally at our fingertips.
Incredible.
Podcasts, music, audiobooks, YouTube channels. There's a whole world of listening material out there.
Oh, I know. It's amazing.
Yeah.
This source actually makes a great point about starting with content that's, slightly above your current level,
Okay.
challenging enough to keep you engaged,
Right.
but not so difficult that you feel completely lost. They specifically recommend aiming for material where you understand about maybe 30 to 50% of what's being said, said.
Okay.
It's that sweet spot where your brain is actively deciphering meaning
Yeah.
and making connections.
And here's where it gets like really interesting. The source argues that instead of relying on subtitles as a crutch,
Right.
we should actually try to embrace those context clues,
Yeah.
the visuals, even like the act of rewinding to try to piece together the meaning.
Yes.
It's like flexing those mental muscles.
Exactly. It's really about training your brain to decode meaning in the same way that you did as like a child learning your first language.
Oh, wow.
And those aha moments when you finally get something without the subtitles.
Yeah.
Incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
But there's another piece of advice from this source that might seem a little counterintuitive,
Okay.
especially if you're, prone to a little stage fright.
Yeah.
They actually encourage speaking from day one.
Oh, I know. It can feel so scary to put yourself out there, though,
Yeah,
before you feel ready. But this source makes a case for why those early imperfect attempts are actually really crucial.
Think about it this way. You wouldn't, pick up a guitar for the first time and expect to play like,
Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix, right?
Right.
Language learning is kind of similar.
Okay.
It's about, building those neural pathways.
Yeah.
And the sooner you start speaking, even if it's just to yourself, the stronger those connections become.
So it's like building muscle memory, but for your mouth.
Exactly.
I love that they offer some really practical tips for practicing solo, too.
Yeah, like what?
Like narrate your day, describe your surroundings, repeat phrases from your learning materials.
Yeah.
It's all about getting comfortable with just producing the sounds.
Totally. You know what I find incredibly helpful?
What's that?
Recording yourself.
Oh, interesting.
Doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Right.
Just a quick voice memo on your phone.
Sure.
But listening back allows you to pinpoint areas for improvement.
Okay.
Track your progress over time.
Yeah.
Plus, it gets you used to the sound of your own voice.
Yeah.
Speaking the language,
Which can be weird at first.
which can be strange,
Yeah.
but it gets easier. Trust me. Okay, so we've covered listening.
Yeah.
We've covered speaking.
Uh-huh.
What about writing?
Oh, writing. I think for a lot of us, the thought of writing in a new language just brings back all those memories.
Oh,
Stressful grammar tests, red ink everywhere.
the worst. But this source kind of like flips the script
Okay.
and presents writing as more of a tool for reinforcement rather than, like a test. What's really fascinating here is the idea that by physically writing down, new words, new phrases,
Right.
even if you never look at those notes again, it can actually significantly boost memory and comprehension.
Really?
Yeah, it's like you're creating your own, personalized cheat sheet
Yeah.
of useful language.
So we don't need to be crafting like Shakespearean sonnets here.
No,
Yeah.
unless you want to, of course.
Okay, good.
The key takeaway is just keep it low pressure.
Right.
Just jot down key phrases, new vocabulary, anything that just helps solidify what you're learning.
Yeah.
Think of it as like a dialogue journal
Okay.
with the language itself. Now, for a technique that I have to admit I was a little skeptical of at first,
Okay.
but the source makes a really surprisingly convincing argument. Visualization.
Visualization.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got me intrigued. This sounds like we're about to unlock some like next level language learning superpowers.
Well, I don't know about superpowers.
Okay.
But the source explains that there's a real neurological basis for this.
Okay.
When we vividly imagine ourselves performing an action, like, speaking another language,
Right.
our brains actually activate similar neural pathways as if we were actually doing it.
Wow.
It's like giving your brain a mental dress rehearsal
Oh, I like
for
that.
the real deal.
So instead of just like passively reviewing vocabulary,
Right.
we should be picturing ourselves ordering that croissant in a Parisian cafe.
Yes,
Asking for directions in Japanese.
exactly.
Or, discussing our favorite books in Spanish with a new friend.
Exactly. And the more detailed and immersive those visualizations, the more powerful the effect. And it's not just about, the practicalities of language. It's also about building that confidence
Right.
and that positive self-image as a speaker of that language.
Yeah, it's like giving our brains a sneak peek of our like future fluent selves.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, this is totally achievable. You've got this. This source really emphasizes the mental game of language learning.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it actually ties back into, the source's core message about reframing challenges as opportunities.
Right.
There will inevitably be, bumps in the road when you're learning a new language.
Sure.
The key is to view those moments not as setbacks, but as stepping stones on your path to fluency.
It's about building that resilience, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And remembering that like every mistake is just an opportunity to kind of learn and improve.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, this source really hammers home the importance of consistency.
Yes.
It's not about those like grand gestures or marathon study sessions.
Right.
It's really about those small, dedicated efforts over time
Absolutely.
that truly add up.
Think of it, like building a habit.
Yeah.
Like going to the gym.
Right.
Or meditating or something.
Right.
The key is to find a rhythm that works for your life.
Okay.
Whether that's, 10 minutes on your commute.
Right.
Or a language learning app during your lunch break.
Right.
Or even just listening to a podcast while you're like cooking dinner.
Yeah. It's about weaving those language learning into just the fabric of your everyday life.
Totally.
So it's a natural, enjoyable part of your routine rather than a chore.
Yes, exactly. And this source is really big on like finding the joy in the process.
Oh, totally. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Remember how we were talking about choosing a language that, speaks to your passions?
Right.
That's really key. But it actually goes beyond that initial choice.
Okay.
The source really encourages us to actively seek out those ways
Yeah.
to connect with the language on a deeper level.
So if you're learning Italian, maybe that's, whipping up a batch of homemade pasta from scratch
Yes.
while listening to Italian opera.
Exactly.
Or if you're tackling Japanese, maybe that's diving into the world of anime and manga.
Exactly. The more you can immerse yourself in the culture surrounding that language, right?
Yeah.
The music, the movies, the food, the people.
Yep.
The more enriching and enjoyable the entire learning experience is going to become.
It becomes less about like rote memorization and more about like opening a window into this whole new way of seeing the world.
Exactly.
Connecting with people, exploring different perspectives, expanding our own horizons.
That's the magic of language.
That's the magic of language.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's about building those bridges, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, I love that.
And, for anyone listening who's ever felt that spark of inspiration,
Yeah.
to learn a new language,
Right.
this source offers a really, really powerful reminder.
Okay.
It's easier than you think.
Right.
And it's well within your reach.
I love that. So take that first step, embrace the journey, and who knows what amazing discoveries await on the other side of fluency, right?
I love that. Until next time, happy learning, everybody.